Hello and welcome to another episode of The Living Philosophy. Today I'm going to talk about another aspect of Lord of the Rings psychology. So just been thinking about the Isengard situation. So the Isengard is where Saruman has his tower Orthanc and his circle of power around it, and his kind of his grounds. And in the process of the Lord of the Rings, he digs up all the ancient trees around, and he digs very deep pits and starts creating orcs and all sort of weapons and stuff in the pits around it, and really kind of scorching the earth and all that. And I just thought there's room for looking at the psychology there, because what happens to that ring is that the Ents, the tree herders, the shepherds of the forest come along, and these are animate trees, and the group of them come along, and they bring all the huorns, which are the semi-animate trees. They can move, but they're not so conscious. And in the Two Towers, it's actually suggested that maybe they were previously Ents, or at least some of them were previously Ents that are gone a bit tree-ish. So they come down, and in the movie we see them break the dam, release the river, and they defeat all of the orcs of Isengard, and they break down this dam, and all this water comes flowing through Isengard and flooding down, water pouring into the deep pits. And in the book we see they have to fill in some leaks or something for wherever the water is escaping, and then the pits fill up and they redirect the water back away. And I think that's maybe an interesting point there, is that in the movie it's a dam that they break, but in the books they redirect the river, and they build it up, and then they release it into Isengard, so it pours and drowns out the deep fires. And I was just thinking about how this maps over onto actual psychology. Well, actually I was just chatting to a friend about it, and it kind of, we just explored it as it came up. And thinking about someone who, the typical thing of like a midlife crisis, we'll say, or someone who reaches a crisis point in their life, maybe they end up burning out, working too hard. And if you think of that little scene as the human psyche, as psyche at whole, and in modern life we try so hard to, maybe we become slaves to a single drive, and whether that's the drive to work or some kind of, we separate out and we become patrons of a single god, and we march completely to that god's drum. And you can see that with Elon Musk talking about working 120 hours, and yet how you wouldn't want to be him. He says that on Joe Rogan, that, you know, it's a really tough life, and he's not sure that anyone else, he wouldn't wish his own existence on anyone else, which is really interesting. But he's such a slave to that one overarching drive, that one almost possession of what he's doing, and how hard he works. And so if you think of something like that, or someone who comes to a midlife crisis, and everything that they've been doing, everything that they're building towards, it's not enough, and it turns to ashes in their hands, and it no longer has that meaning and that pride, and it feels hollow at that point. And just thinking of how that might look. So Saruman could be seen then in that sense as harnessing the dark powers, harnessing you're giving away nature, you're burning away nature. So you cut down the trees, you dig deep pits, and you start fires in order to create products, and to create orcs, and to create life out of this industrial complex, this insane work ethic of imbalance that just wants to create and to have power and to do amazing things, like things that people will respect, them to have people bow before you. And I guess that's a drive that's quite common in the West nowadays. We're driven to become great, to do something, to establish ourselves in the world. And in times with like the internet or with things like that, with the scaling up of industries, it's that now you have to work twice as hard, because you're not just competing against the people in your town, but you're competing against people all over the world. So this is the Pareto distribution in action. And so it's more likely to skew us towards becoming that kind of a Saruman figure who has to dig up the earth, and who scorches the ground and cuts down the trees to fuel the fires. And we see nature destroying, and we see this like mirrored in the the cultural psychology, the global psychology of our globalized modern culture in global warming itself. We see that we are chopping down the trees in order to make more and more technology, in order to earn more and more money. And what you see happen with Treebeard and the Ents is it's sort of a Gaia thing. It's the earth itself becoming animate, coming to life and breaking down, creating dams, and it's the build-up, a build-up of emotional, overwhelming, natural energy. And you see that build up and the trees coming in, destroying all of our things and letting the water through to drown them so that they become hidden and that they become submerged and a thing of the past. And so you can see that on a global cultural level, but you could also see it in someone with that kind of a burnout, midlife crisis kind of thing going on, where they reach a crisis point in their own minds, and sometimes that can snap them or completely transform their personality and ultimately their life, because they have to come back into some sort of balance. And this is the natural world, and the natural world isn't just the global cycles that we see happening with global warming on that global level, but you see it within the individual. We are 4 billion year old creatures carrying so much of a varied instinctual heritage, and you have to honor these different instincts. You have to honor the different aspects of your being, otherwise you go crazy. And it's the happy life, the good life is a life that's in balance, that's in harmony. At least so the wise tell us. And it's this life of inner harmony is the balance of nature and man's endeavours, and it's how do we bring those together. And maybe you can see that more in a Gondor or ultimately in a Rivendell or Lothlorien. You can see the living in communion and yet building around, augmenting nature, as we see Galadriel do with the Caris Galathon and the fantastic tree at the centre of Lothlorien. So within the individual, you've got the forces of nature, which are the parts of yourself you're not serving. Maybe they're social aspects or relationships you're letting fall by the wayside, or maybe it's your sleep, maybe it's your diet. Something is maybe going on the back burner that will come back and bite you in the ass. And I guess this can be a grace with death, a heart attack, or some experience of cancer, or anything, I guess, in terms of illness. If you can see how overextending yourself towards work and not looking after your health or your relationships, how those things can fall away. And this is nature coming in. This is Treebeard and the Ents coming back to reclaim the ground that you've staked out, that little ring that you've staked out around your impenetrable tower, which we could think of perhaps as the ego. And the ego at the centre of a great circle, thinking it's the centre of the world, but actually nature enshrouds it, and nature really is still the mother, the great mother, and the dominator that can shut it down if it overextends itself, if it starts destroying the world around it. And so it's an obvious map over onto global warming, but I think it's a very powerful psychological map over there to see the nature will bite us back, and Treebeard will come, and they will release the river, and they will destroy all that is left behind, and all of our works can become naught. I guess the book of Job could be a good map over here to see how God just, if he wants to, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. There's another nuance you could look at on the globalized scale with this, and that is the danger of, if you look at the relics of ancient civilizations, and you think that this too shall pass, and the more civilized we become, and if we do fall into a dark age, the deeper that dark age will be, because of how much of a loss, how much of a loss the order will be, because our lives have become so ordered, so dependent on so many aspects of this complex technological world. And so when you think of what happens when nature brings it back into balance, then it's kind of a scary thing to contemplate, because nature will bite back. Maybe the water levels will rise, and it will cause population displacement, and we will see the the migrants is essentially shutting down the other civilizations which are trying to maintain a meager grasp of the former glory of civilization, and perhaps it will all fall away and we will fall back into a dark age because we cannot support the forward momentum. And so we see that the Saruman in modern civilization is perhaps in danger of dragging us in and submerging all of our great achievements in which, you know, on this view would be infernal achievements, really, that we've achieved them at a cost, which is certainly what Greta Thunberg and the Green Movement is trying to tell us, is that like there is a cost to come, and you might not see it now and you might think you are powerful, but you could ultimately be humbled. And so, yeah, that's everything that I wanted to share on that topic today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please subscribe. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments, and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. And I shall see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.